Your images are not coming out crisp and sharp, are they? No worries, we will fix it today. Hello and welcome to another chapter of this photography course. I am Aarzoo Khurana, a photographer with over a decade of experience, and I am going to share with you all that in this series. So today we are going to talk about shutter speed. There is something called as shutter in front of the sensor of your camera. It opens and closes when you press the shutter button. Now, this shutter controls the flow of light into the camera. Basically, apart from the aperture, shutter speed is another parameter of the exposure triangle which controls the flow of light into the camera. Shutter speed basically means how fast or slow this shutter opens and closes, the speed of the shutter. Now, it's obvious that if the shutter opens and closes very fast, the flow of light entering the sensor will be constantly and quickly curtailed as compared to when it opens and closes slowly. So, faster the shutter speed, less the light enters the sensor, and slower the shutter speed, more the light enters the sensor. Hence, in a low light situation, your shutter speed has to be on a slower side for enough light to enter inside the camera. If you want to understand how the shutter speed is connected to the other parameters, aperture and ISO, here is a video you need to watch now for a better understanding. Now, apart from the flow of light, shutter speed controls something else in your images, the action freeze and motion blur. Imagine a beautiful scenario when you're in the middle of the jungle with some crazy lighting and a tiger starts to walk towards you. You get all excited and start clicking the images. Later, once the tiger goes inside, you play back the images and they are blur. There can be three main reasons behind this. First, camera shake. Second, motion blur. And third, you missed the focus. First two are because you messed up in your shutter speed setting. Third one, we cover in the upcoming chapters. Now let's go out and do some practicals so that you can have a better understanding of shutter speed. Here is a jug in a glass, and this is something which is going to help me to capture some motion blur and action freeze for you guys. I'm going to fill this jug with water and pour that water in the glass, and I'm going to shoot that on different shutter speeds. I am on Alpha 1, which is mounted on a 70-100, and we are using a Leophoto tripod today. Let's see how it goes. Now my settings right now are 1/5000 is the shutter speed because I have to keep it really high. 6.3 is the f number, and 1250 1250 is my ISO. Now I have to keep the shutter speed really high because I have to freeze the fast action. Let's see if we can freeze this action at a fast shutter speed or not. Okay, there you go. Alright, check these images. A proper action freeze at 1/5000. Now let me show you if we can freeze some motion blur or not. I'm going to purposely slow down my shutter speed, and then we will pour the water into that glass and see if we get a proper soft creamy look of the water or not. Now in this situation my shutter speed is 1/15, f number is 22. I have to keep the f number that high because again I have to take into account the extra light which is there right now, and I'm not having the ND filter with me right now. That's why I have to increase the f number to 22 in order to cut that light. Again, theory of reciprocity. So if you have missed that chapter, there you go. The video is there. Just check the video and come back. All right, ISO is on 100. Now let's see what do we get. Okay, there you go. All right, check the images. You have that soft, creamy look on the water. And that is called deliberate motion blur when you slow down your shutter speed to freeze that action but in a more blur manner to kind of give that lovely effect to the final image. Okay, now the obvious question is, what is the right shutter speed? Well, again, it is pretty situational. It depends on what you're shooting and where you're shooting and how much is the movement. Are you handheld? Are you using a tripod, a monopod, a bean bag? The entire combination is going to give you an ideal shutter speed. But since we are discussing this, I can give you a number to start with. Make sure your shutter speed is at least 1 by focal length, or if you're on a relatively light lens. This will help you to avoid the basic camera shake. Now, if you're on a heavy lens, then take that weight into account because more the weight, more the shake. So start from 1 by focal length into 1.5 or 2 depending on the availability of light. Now, let's say if you're shooting movement, take into account that movement as well, like in the case of water. Increase the shutter speed further. How much shutter speed is enough to freeze that action will depend on the subject as well. Let's say if you're shooting a bird, Then there are fast moving birds like a bee eater, and there are slow moving birds like, let's say, an egret. So the shutter speed will vary in freezing action in both these situations. Now let's say if you're shooting animals, then there are elephants who walk relatively slow as compared to tigers. So here your subject knowledge plays a key role. And to delve into this topic deeper, I will make a separate video on shutter speed and using it to capture wildlife. Till then, stay tuned and wait for the next video.